right, here we go.
All righty.
Z, here we are.
Yes.
We are live and in person virtually.
Yay!
It's always so wonderful to connect with you.
It's more wonderful for me to connect with you guys over there.
Yeah, you showed up in our office this week, and it was just so jumping places where it's, all figure out how to create this new world.
Yeah, I have a tendency of interrupting people's lives with a lot of noise and just smiles, and I do my best to try to make sure that people are happy and fill up the room with joy, and that's what I like doing with you guys, just have fun. I just feel like so much like family when I come over there with you guys, and we just had a great time.
Yeah, so that's probably a great place to start this conversation. So this Sojourner project, in terms of its current iteration, this virtual production that we've created, uh, amazing for us to, in the face of COVID, gather together in a room and try and bring this story, this piece of theater, to life to audiences all over the world right now, which is amazing. Interesting though, I think the context is important. We had met a couple of times in different scenarios, but then actually got to really work together for the first time when you came as an actor to us here at Quintessence when we did Rachel Greenpeace's play Rachel. Truly an American classic, an African American classic, and it was such a thrilling piece of theater to bring to Philadelphia, to Mount Airy, and what we think was its professional premiere. And you played the matriarch in that project, and blew everybody away with that work that you did in the project.
Thank you.
And we were already talking about what is the next step? What can we do? How can Z be part of Quintessence? Also, all the work that you do with First World Theater, your own company, how can we bridge these different approaches to theater and this energy around the performing arts and theater as we move forward? And this summer, as part of the Black Lives Matter George Floyd protests that were happening, you created a series of conversations that were really extraordinary and explosive and really important for our theater community to begin to address the social justice issues that were not just happening within the urban civic justice, social justice, political spectrum, but also in our own artistic, theatrical community. And that really was where it seems like we began this conversation.
Yes. Yeah, I think, we as artists, we have to understand that we are responsible for taking chances. Because we are artists, sometimes we want to stay in the box and we shy away from certain issues and things like that, especially political issues. I've never been that type of artist. I grew up in a household where one person was a Martin Luther King follower, another one was a Malcolm X follower. So I found the balance between the two. And I felt during that time, even now, that it was necessary for us to begin these talks. And it was crazy on how, when we started these town halls here in Philadelphia, First World Theater, that all of a sudden it took on its own thing across the country. I was getting emails from other companies and things like that, and how did you do this and things like that. And I was happy to freely give the information. And I was just really happy that the theater community here in Philadelphia decided to attend these town hall meetings about systemic racism in the arts. And we talked about things that were not necessarily in the arts and how it affected all of us as human beings, and how important diversity and equality and inclusiveness was, how important that was. And I think the town halls went very well. then we did a follow-up to make sure people were doing what they said they would do. And a lot of companies did create these wonderful things about inclusiveness and diversity and things like that. And then I was just so excited when you and I decided, okay, well, let's start this. Let's kick this thing off, this diversity and this inclusiveness and equality thing going. And when we talked about Sojourner, um, and I sent the script to you, and I was really honored and happy that your response was, yes, we're going to do this, because it was such an important project. Yeah, and I was just so happy about that.
Then it's interesting because I feel like so many people know of this woman sort of tangentially, like you know the name Sojourner Truth. You have a sense of this person's place in history, but it seems that most people don't know any of the details. She's sort of been kind of not sort of neglected, but not sort of really held up or sort of given her due in terms of just the absolutely incredible journey that she went on.
Yeah.
And so when even I read the script, I couldn't believe many of the events that happened to this woman, the things that she did.
Yeah.
And went right to the Wikipedia page and bought her book. And it was like, this must be theater, but no, it's actually this amazing journey through the world, through America, at a time where everything was in great flux.
Yeah.
She really took the moment and took the opportunity and marched forward with that moment that she was living in.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me, so there's so much we could talk about.
I know, right? Well, you know what? We spent hours, but I do want to respond to something really quickly. What you said, yeah, she's been swept under the rug of who she was. They America, again, as usual, pick and choose who they want you to know about and things like that. So, they wanted you to hear the Harriet Tubman story on a consistent base, or Frederick Douglass. In the 60s, they wanted you to hear the Malcolm X and the Martin Luther Kings, but it was so many more African Americans that had done all these wonderful things. And, it would take a lifetime. And she was one of the major players, and she got swept under the rug. You're talking about someone, she came before Harriet and Frederick and all the rest of them. As a matter of fact, she was Harriet Tubman's mentor. They used to live down the road from each other in Maryland at one time when they were staying on these plantations. And Harriet would sneak off her plantation and come down to visit Sojourner. Harriet's like 12 years old. Sojourner was in her 20s. And Sojourner will tell her stories about how important it is to have your freedom, how important it is for you to stand up on what you believe in and things like that. So, but people don't know about this. People don't know that she would challenge people like Frederick Douglass and anyone else that would come along who were literate, who were great debaters. And you're talking about a woman who couldn't read or write or anything, but she had more common sense and more intelligence than anyone else. I consider her a Black intelligentsia, which is what she was. They didn't know she was the confidant to Abraham Lincoln. He would sneak her in the White House, and they would have conversations, like Obama or Joe would have had. They had these conversations, and people didn't know that the night before the Emancipation Proclamation, he wanted her opinion, and she told him that it stunk. And, it was just so much history that we can talk about this woman that people don't know about. They know the name, but they don't know the effects that she had, with women's rights and how she was involved in that movement, and how her goal was to bring the entire institution of slavery down. And people don't know anything about that. And that was a hell of a goal during that time, which she helped accomplish. They don't know that she integrated the trolley car system in New York City. Rosa Parks was not the first one. Sojourner Truth was, So, and we could go on, but yeah, she was just fabulous. And I am like so honored. I'm scared of her too sometimes. So.
Yeah, I think part part of what was really amazing to me is it's so easy to split the country into North and South and to look at slavery as something that wasn't a Northern issue. And I think what this story really makes clear is just how the vestiges of slavery, which did exist in New York State and throughout the Northeast before it started to move forward, really impacted generations of African Americans. And just incredible that she was part of this movement that really assisted on the legal level of ensuring that slavery was dead and that its sort of repercussions were being ended in the court system. Someone who didn't have a degree in law, but who took the time to sort of look at it and say, this is this is unjust. This is against the law, and I'm going to take it to the court, and I'm going to win. And the fact that she was doing that in the late 1800s or mid 1800s is really just sort of mind blowing.
Yeah, she took she was the queen of taking you to court.
Right.
It was like so amazing how this slave was like amazing just to take people to court, and she would show up in court and she would state her case, and the lawyers would come and they would have all this logical information, these facts and everything, and she would challenge every fact. And her basis was the whole point that this is not equal and this is not just, this makes no sense, and we're going to correct this. So I think because she believed in that so much, the courts understood what she was saying, and being up in the North, they understood. And it was just a powerful thing for her to show up in courts and challenge judges and district attorneys and lawyers. And she's the only one who shows up in court by herself all the time. She would. And on the other side, you had like 4 or 5 lawyers challenging her, and she would be there by herself and she would win all her cases. Which is, I wish she was living today. She could be my lawyer.
It's also interesting. She really is one of the great speakers, one of the great rhetoricians of American culture. And the fact that we don't think of her speeches as being some of the primary texts of American history as a woman, as a Black woman, is really amazing. The I Am a Woman speech is one for the ages.
Yes.
And hearing you deliver it really gives it its almost timeless grandeur. It is up there on the level of the Emancipation Proclamation in terms of its power, in terms of its structure, in terms of its argument.
Yes.
And it's so interesting to think that, as she says in the play, at that time in the 1800s, so many different Black leaders, Black voices were rising up and finding their space. And it's hard to sort of contextualize that wave didn't somehow continue effortlessly forward. It just sort of kept getting sort of blocked when you have such an extraordinary voice as Sojourner there, really from the beginning.
Yeah. She I wish she was alive with us just so we can find out, the details and answers from her directly. Because that Ain't I a Woman speech was just, I'm curious to know, where did that come from? She says that it just came from God. She said God gave it to her. And she knew she had to speak. So when she went to the conference in Ohio, that's when she was involved in the women's rights movement. And, besides her being a slave, she had saw so many things of women were being dishonored and were being wronged during that time. And her attitude was, it didn't matter if you were a Black woman or a white woman. I saw all the injustices in just being a woman from a man, and how dare a man do this to women, especially when she says her line that, man ain't had nothing to do with it. It was between God and a woman. I mean, who would have thought to say something like that? And she's challenging the system. She's challenging this man's male chauvinist thing that's going on during that time. Like, wait a minute. If it wasn't for us, we are the ones who brought men into the world. And if it wasn't for us, you wouldn't be where you are. So, she wasn't asking to take over. She was just saying that women need to be treated equal and with respect and with honor. And yeah, that's like one of the most powerful speeches I had ever heard of. And I agree, it is up there with the emancipation. It really is. Yeah.
And so I don't want to date you in any way, but you've been dancing with this woman for quite some time. What,
Yes. I mean, her and I have been in a slow dance for 21 years.
so yeah, that was one of the most amazing things about this project for me. I mean, you asked me to sort of co-direct this project with you, and you had been in this play and with this character for decades. So
Yes.
your knowledge of her every breath was I don't know what the equivalent is in theater. It would be like, I guess, working with one of the great sort of Shakespearean actors who had been playing the role since the beginning. Um, so you and it really was a kind of spiritual event the way you bring this woman to life.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that journey for you, for what it is for you to tap into this?
Ooh. Um, it takes a lot to tap into her. Doing rehearsal with you guys, you notice I was just taking it slow and playing around a lot. But when it was time to really do the performance, I had to go into a space where it was just her and I. And I know it's kind of weird saying that, people don't probably wouldn't understand that, but there's something spiritually that happens uh, with our ancestors, uh, particularly with an ancestor like Sojourner Truth. So my first stage is that I have to, at all times, ask her permission to tell her story. And people are going, "What are you talking about? Ask her permission?" Because I can't tell something, the story of such of her caliber, without getting permission from her, because it's her story. And how dare I come in and think and have the audacity to just tell your story and just say the lines. It's not about saying the words that Richard has written. It's about uh, getting in touch with who she really was. So the process for me is always very difficult, Alex. It had always been very difficult for me. Um, and she's always given me permission. There are times that she shows up when I'm working um, a little too much. I try to reserve with the energy and try and stay in the actor's mode and keep saying in my mind, I'm just acting, I'm telling the story of Sojourner Truth. But for some reason, she comes into that room, she comes into my spirit, she takes over. As what happened at one time in our rehearsal with you guys, we had to stop filming because she had entered the room and I was not able to control that scene at that moment the way that I wanted to control it as an actor. She actually took over and she took control. So it's a very difficult process. I burn my white candles. I constantly pray. Um, I play certain type of music from during that time, but mostly I just focus on who she is, uh, what she went through during that time, and what is needed. What is it that I have to tell and make sure the audience know what she wants them to hear. So I don't know. She just comes and it just happens. She's part of me now. Sometimes when I'm not doing it, my daughter will say, "Mom, you acting like Soldier of the Truth right now." And I go, "Okay, I'm sorry. I can't help it. She's just there." So I do my best to keep her away when we're not on stage. But sometimes she comes when people say stupid things to me, I go, "What would Soldier to say?"
I think one of the surprising things about the piece is how much humor there is in it, how much
Yeah,
laughter there is in it,
yeah,
and true joy. And
yeah.
I definitely was thinking a lot about when working on it with you, how much of that is your effervescence and how much of it is the spirit of Sojourner Truth and where those two things come together. And by the end of it, and after reading her book, she really does have a kind of um, there's a delight to her kind of journey,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
and her connection to God gives her a kind of joy that's really fascinating. And I thought that was something that you brought into the piece so effortlessly. That was just really wonderful and very unexpected for a piece like this.
Thank you. Yeah, she had a great sense of humor. Just like me, I have a great sense of humor, and I think when Richard wrote it, when it was so heavy in drama, and then when I saw these wonderful light moments, I said, yes, I can I can have some fun with Sojourner here. We can have fun. So, like I'm an actor, a person who likes to make a fool of herself anyway on stage. So I love comedy. So I don't get a chance to do it too much. So when I get a chance to do it, I go all out until you, the director, say, okay, you got to pull it back. So yeah. She was a spirited woman, and I always tell people that she didn't have happiness because one of her lines is happiness don't last always, but she had joy. And you can't take joy from somebody who was like Sojourner Truth, because she was so connected to God, and her attitude was, no matter what you do to me, you're not going to steal my joy from me, which I think came across and brought her all this wonderful humor. She was a cussing woman too. She cussed a lot too. So, but Richard, Richard took out a lot of the cussing. Oh, she cussed like a sailor, and she smokes too. She used to smoke a pipe.
Right. Are there any other stories that you've learned about her on this journey that aren't part of the play that you think about, or that are sort of important to your kind of consciousness of this woman?
Yeah, I learned from when I was doing my research. I dug deeper, and then I had went I traveled around like Northampton, Connecticut. I went to Boston. I went to all those places. And all up there north, they have all these statues of her. Like she's like just honored. She's the queen all over the place. You see these large, huge statues of Sojourner. And while I was up there, I discovered that she didn't just stay in the north as a slave. What she would do, people don't know, she would sneak down to the south. She would actually sneak and hide and listen to rallies of of Klansmen and things like that to find out what they were doing. She would also listen to the ideas before the Civil War started on what they were planning on doing to how to begin this Civil War. People don't notice about her. And then she would come back to the North and she would report it to all of her politician friends and things like that, or what they were planning on doing. Like, so she was kind of like a mini spy, which I thought was amazing for someone to do. I found out about her. I found out that she was a nurse in the Army. You're talking about someone who doesn't read or write, but she was a nurse in the Army, and she was taking care of these soldiers during the Civil War, and she would take care of mostly the white soldiers, the ones who were totally against her, the ones who degraded her people. She had such a heart that it didn't matter, that forgiveness is for everyone. I discovered that about her. I also discovered when she left her last master, for the next following years, like about 4 or 5 years, she never laid down to go to sleep like you and I. She set up sleeping with a big stick, because she said if she went to sleep at one night, that the evil spirits would come and take her and put her back in slavery, and she was determined not to go back in slavery. So I mean, like, you're on the run for like 5 or something years, and you're sitting up on a log, or you're standing up on a tree or something to sleep. That was freaking amazing. And I was like, I just wouldn't have the strength to do that. I don't know where she got the strength to do that. And I thought that was so amazing. And I said that I don't think any of us could have survived that or done what she did. So, and there were a lot of other things I discovered about it. I was just like, whoa, this is crazy. She also during that time had the highest bounty on her head. People don't know that. She had the highest bounty than any other African American slave, bigger than Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, all the rest. So it goes to show you how important she was. She was considered on the top 10 list as one of the most dangerous ex-slaves that ever lived. So, and people don't know that about her. So these are the things I discovered about Sojourner Truth, and I'm so proud of her.
Yeah, I mean, her journey is sort of unparalleled, to sort of come from literally the worst possible scenario where she had no control, no rights, was enslaved, passed through a series of slave owners, none of which were treated her with any kind of dignity or respect or gave her any form of education. And the fact that at the end of her life, she ends up meeting with President Ulysses S. Grant, arguing for land for freed African Americans and for soldiers. Is just such the arc of that tale is just so inspiring and extraordinary.
Yeah.
And so it's so exciting to get to really continue to sort of remind anyone who will listen of this great American life.
Yeah. It was just so crazy how she was so close to the presidents, and like the presidents had so much respect for her. And these were presidents who had slaves, and she would even challenge them, like, "What are you doing? How dare you have a slave, but then yet you adore me? That's a contradiction." And she would actually challenge them on these things, and they heard her loud and clear. Her and Ulysses S. Grant had a great relationship. She had a great relationship with all of them except for one. Of course, she couldn't stand one during that time. But yeah, she was just like Andrew Johnson, all of them. She would hang out with the best of the best. She was always in the White House, and you're going, "How in the world is a slave?" And I'm not talking about in the kitchen cooking and not serving anyone. I'm talking about sitting in the Oval Office, having conversations about certain issues and race in America and what needs to be done. And that was just amazing about her. So I have a question for you.
Yes.
How did you feel about taking on a project such as this? Because I know Quintessence, you guys do wonderful classical pieces, and I love all the work you do over there. But I mean, for us, we consider this a classical piece in the African American community. But this is not something typical that Quintessence does. So how was that ride for you guys over there?
It was really exciting. Part of our challenge as a classic theater company is to really look at sort of what the classics are and what the role is. And at Quintessence, we call ourselves a progressive classic theater, so we're using the classics to look forward. And in the larger idea of classical theater is also the history play, made famous by many, but Shakespeare being one of them. And this idea of looking at your own country's history and the essential figures and their texts, their great speeches, and turning it into drama is part of very much at the heart of classical theater. So to get to do Sojourner and through Richard Pierce's wonderful collection of original first person sources and his own writing, we're sort of continuing on this journey of looking at what the classics are. So this felt like a very exciting hybrid. There are a number of other great contemporary American plays that look at American history, which we hope to be able to bring in, that give us access to specifically to Black writers and the Black experience as it integrates into the sort of larger conversation. And so that's a next big step for us. And when you sent me this play and I read it, I was like, this is perfect. This is like, why not start with this project? And I think also, I just have so much respect for you and for what you do. And I knew that we were going to be safe in the sense of the work was going to be done with integrity and with force, artistically, spiritually, politically. And so we were going to go on a really exciting ride, despite all the chaos of COVID. So that was really amazing to get to really get to meet you in that way and get to meet this woman through your artistic creation and just get to assist in how do we take on this insane challenge of doing this without a live audience with a series of cameras, in an empty theater.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to say you guys absolutely did a great job when you recreated those moments in placing her in that moment. Just absolutely wonderful. The lighting, the photography, your sound. I mean, just everyone was just so wonderful on the set. You guys did a great job. And yeah, I'm so glad that you started with this piece that Richard wrote because I don't know. For some reason, like it's in our community, we see it as classical, but a lot of companies across the country, they don't see certain, they don't consider African American theater as classical theater. When they say classical, they're thinking of Shakespeare and things like that. But we have our classicals. We have our Lorraine Hansberrys. We have our August Wilsons. We have our Richard Lamont Pierce. So we have classical theater. It's just that you it's just different. It's just a little slight different. It's not, it may not be in verse and things like that, but it is classical theater because at some times, at some moment throughout the play, you will hear verse in these playwrights' work. You heard it in Sojourner at one point, sometimes when she would go into soliloquy and she just going on and on, and it was a certain type of rhythm that remind you of verse and things like that. So yeah, I was just really excited that you guys took on such a big project during COVID. And you guys figured it out well. I mean, you figured out how to do this. And I was worried, how are we going to do this? How can this translate from stage to film? And I was so honored just to work with you guys. And I said, I'm part of the family now, and I'm going to always work at Quintessa. And if I don't, I'm coming knocking on your door. I'm coming into the office again and ask what's the problem. And I know Richard was so happy with what was done, our playwright, Richard Lamont Pierce. And he and I have an agreement. He wrote the play, but the play is mine. So he wrote the words, but that play is mine. And we have that agreement like, nah, Sojourner is mine, belongs to me. We actually had a conversation not too long ago. He said, Z, I was thinking, if I pass away, and I said, well, no time soon. He said, no, if I pass away, Sojourner, you got the rights to it. I said, I better have the rights to Sojourner. That's my play. So yeah, I'm just really excited, and I would actually like to see if we can get funders. I want to turn this into a full-length feature film like they did with Harry. I mean, just to tell the story of Sojourner Truth. I think it's so important for that to be told, and we will. I'm working on some stuff. We're going to get us some money.
Well, I think it is amazing how you transform when you walked out every time in your full makeup. It would sort of be breathtaking that was actually you inside this character because the transformation was so profound. So I feel like you have some time.
You said I have some time?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. I guess that's good to hear.
Yeah.
I'm happy to know that.
Well, Z, it's been such a gift to get to do this project with you, and I hope that this is the beginning of a really exciting new era for Quintessence and for First World and for all of the Philadelphia theater community as we really work together to build new audiences, to tell stories that need to be told right now, and to really move all of this forward. Because as you've always done, you've always found a way of bringing art and activism together and bringing people from all sides of the argument together to really kind of truthfully struggle with the complexities of everything. And so this, for us, was a great way of really just starting that process.
Yeah.
And when you left the office, everyone was like, "Can Z come back every week?"
Sure, I can. Tell the crew I'll just come. I'll bring coffee. You can have some bagels while you work and just chew the fat, and we can bounce off ideas. I'm there with you. I have no problem with that.
And we'll just keep figuring out how to make great art and for this great place that we live in as we
that's what it's about. It's about making great art. And speaking of great art, I want people to get those tickets. This is the last weekend. You have to go and come and see and hear the truth. That's what I've been saying all the time on Facebook. Come in here and see the truth. You won't regret it. Trust me. You can have your children. Anyone can watch it and come and learn about this beautiful, wonderful woman and what Quintessence and First World is doing. And on Sunday, we are having a watch party. If you want to come down to CEC, everyone knows CEC. That's where all the artists have rehearsals and things like that, 3500 Lancaster Avenue from 5 to 8. You just have to purchase your ticket. Come in the door, show us that you purchased your ticket, and come enjoy some wine and some popcorn, and make a small donation to CEC. And Alex and us we'll all be there, and just come have fun with us.
Excellent. Well,
Thank
thank
you.
you so much, Z, for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. I love you guys and love the audience.
And thank you to everyone who joined us tonight. And yes, again, you can still stream this virtual production of Sojourner through Sunday. So please help us spread the word. Thank you, Z.